Why did the Buddha beg? To many people today, this question may seem confusing. How could a man who had attained full enlightenment, who had renounced a kingdom and all worldly desires, live by asking for food from others? Was it poverty? Was it a symbol? Was it a necessity? The truth is that the Buddha's choice to beg for alms was deeply rooted in his spiritual path, and it became one of the core practices of the monastic tradition he founded. It wasn't just about food, it was about training the mind, cultivating humility, and staying connected to the world without being entangled in it. When Siddhartha Gautama left the palace at the age of 29, he turned away from a life of extreme luxury. But after years of practicing harsh asceticism and self-denial in the forest, he also turned away from that. What he discovered in his awakening under the Bodhi tree was the middle way, a path of balance between indulgence and deprivation. Living the middle way, he taught that monks and nuns should neither hoard possessions nor completely isolate themselves from society. Instead, they were to depend on the lay community for their basic needs, especially food. Each morning, the Buddha and his disciples would silently walk through towns and villages with their bowls in hand. They would not speak, ask, or plead. They would simply walk, receive, and be present. The lay people who saw them had the opportunity to give whatever they wished: rice, fruit, bread, a spoonful of curry, even leftovers from the previous day. And whatever was placed into the bowl, the monk or nun would accept it with gratitude, no matter the taste, the quantity, or the condition. This act of walking for alms, known as Pindapada in Pali, was not begging in the ordinary sense. It was a silent exchange, a meeting point between the spiritual seeker and the household community, between the renunciate and the supporter. There was great meaning on both sides of this exchange. For the monastic, it was a chance to cultivate humility, patience, and detachment. Imagine standing before a door and someone gives you spoiled food or nothing at all. Do you feel anger, pride, disappointment? The alms round was a mirror, revealing the subtle attachments and expectations still lingering in the heart. It was also an opportunity to remain mindful, to practice presence, to receive without judgment or desire. Every bite of food that entered, the mouth was to be eaten slowly, thoughtfully, with awareness that it had been freely given, and must be used only to sustain the path of practice. For the layperson, the act of giving was equally profound. It wasn't simply charity. It was a sacred act of generosity, known as dana. In the Buddhist worldview, giving brings merit not as a reward, but as a natural result of opening the heart and letting go of self-centeredness. When a villager placed food into the bowl of the Buddha or one of his monks, they weren't just feeding a person, they were feeding the entire Sangha, the monastic community. They were supporting the continuation of wisdom, compassion, and inner peace in the world. And in return, they would often receive teachings, blessings, or simply the inspiration of seeing someone walking a different path, free from greed, ambition, and fear. The Buddha himself followed this practice for the rest of his life, even after he had thousands of followers. He never exempted himself from the discipline he taught others. He lived in simplicity, owning only a robe, a bowl, a needle, and a water filter. Even kings and wealthy merchants would see him walking silently through the streets with his bowl, undisturbed by fame or attention. His dignity and presence during these alms rounds became legendary, not because he looked like a beggar, but because he carried himself with such serene detachment and inner peace. By begging, the Buddha remained deeply connected to the world. He didn't retreat into a monastery and cut himself off from the suffering and struggles of everyday people. He walked among them. He saw their faces. He received their food. He listened to their worries. He taught not from a pedestal, but from the road, from the forests, from the marketplaces. The practice of alms made sure that monks and nuns never became aloof, proud, or isolated. It kept them grounded in the basic truth of interdependence, that no one lives alone, that we all rely on one another in different ways. There's also another layer to why the Buddha begged. He wanted to challenge the caste system and social expectations of ancient India. In his time, people were expected to remain within the roles they were born into. A prince stayed a prince. A worker remained a worker. But the Buddha stepped outside of that system. He left his royal life to live, like the poorest of the poor. He taught that enlightenment was not a matter of birth, wealth, or background, but of inner realization. By choosing to beg, he was turning the social order upside down. He was reminding people that spiritual greatness is not marked by status or appearance, but by simplicity, mindfulness, and wisdom. Even today, in countries like Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and Sri Lanka, this tradition continues. In the early morning, one can still see lines of saffron-robed monks walking silently through the streets. Children and adults come out of their homes with rice, fruit, or soup, kneel barefoot on the ground, and place their offerings into the bowls. There is no talking, no praise, no request, just giving and receiving pure and simple. This practice shapes both sides. The giver practices generosity and selflessness. The receiver practices humility and gratitude. Both remember that life is not about possessing or controlling, but about sharing and surrendering. In a world driven by consumerism and competition, this small act remains a powerful spiritual reminder that freedom is found not in having more, but in needing less. The image of the Buddha walking with his bowl is not one of weakness, but of strength. It takes courage to live without possessions. It takes inner power to walk without fear or demand. It takes deep trust to rely on others, day after day, with no guarantee. And most of all, it takes wisdom to see that we are all, whether monks or lay people, walking this life together, hand in hand, breath by breath. So when we ask, why did the Buddha beg? We are really asking something deeper. What does it mean to live simply? To receive with gratitude? To let go of pride and control? The Buddha didn't beg because he lacked food. He begged because it was a practice of freedom. True freedom is not found in owning the world, but in being free from needing it. The Buddha walked with a bowl not to fill his stomach, but to empty his self. Thanks for watching. Our channel is new and needs your support. In our channel, you can find many videos on the history and philosophical teachings of Buddhism. Please subscribe to our channel to support the teachings of Buddha on YouTube. You can download our app from Google Play. Get notifications, daily quotes from Buddha, guided meditation methods, articles about Buddhist wisdom and sutras from Pali Canon. Discover inner peace, cultivate mindfulness, and unlock the infinite wisdom of the Buddha with this app. Download link below.